New to role-playing games and unsure how in-depth your backstory should be or what you need for a good foundation to learn to roleplay? Gamed for a while and want to try a new personality you've not played before? Then this video is for you. Stick around as we discuss how the choices you make in the very beginning of character creation while writing your backstory can make your characters more interesting, fun, and easy to run. Welcome to Heroes in the Making. I'm your lore weaver, Nikki, as always. Do you enjoy playing a young, fresh from home character with few life experiences so you can see them grow into the person they're going to become and set them on the path to heroism or villainy? Do you prefer to play someone set in their ways with little or no personal growth over the length of the campaign you're in, but with a history to back this choice up? Do you like when the DM teaches your character life lessons, or are you the one teaching all the young whippersnappers in your party the lessons? With the main element of TTRPGs actually being, well, role-playing, having the roadmap of your character's personality and the beginning of your character arc built right into your backstory can really be helpful. Your backstory, as we've discussed before, is the starting point of choosing the direction you want your character to go or grow. There are several character archetypes used to define the types of fictional characters in literature and film that we can use to help us decide what type of character to play. The ones we're going to look at today are static, dynamic, flat, and round. These are discussed in pairs and compared against one another, which means you have static versus dynamic and flat versus round. Knowing what each archetype is can help you make the right decisions to build the perfect character for you. To start, the difference here is static versus dynamic refers to whether or not a character changes throughout the story, while flat versus round refers to whether a character is one-dimensional or has deep, layered characteristics. So one refers to growth, and one refers to the layers of depth and personality.
Layers! Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it.
Let's take a look at each one individually first, then dive into the different combinations you can make to set yourself up for role-playing success. Static characters are characters who never make a big change during the story, but can still be complex. Their personality, outlook, and even morals remain the same. In fictional works, they're usually not the main character, but make up most of the secondary characters in the story. Many times this type of characters is the villain, but they can also be used as comic relief or even as a comparison for the main character of the story to show how much they've changed. That doesn't mean a static character can't be interesting or be a main character. It does mean to be an interesting main character, they need to have a unique personality. The biggest example of this in all my research is Sherlock Holmes. He's quirky, brilliant, set in his ways, and never changes. I also find that Yoda fits here, as does Dumbledore and pretty much any Disney villain you can think of. If you're going to make a static character for your campaign, you should have a good reason for it and discuss it with your DM. But most importantly, make sure you're going to have fun with it. Dynamic characters are usually what make up your main character or group of characters in film or literature. They grow throughout their story, whether it's their personality, morals and ethics, or even their outlook on life due to the plot, conflicts, and situations they find themselves in. They have a character arc. Most often, they're the more interesting characters, but not always. Also keep in mind that this change could be for the better or for the worse. Anakin Skywalker is definitely a dynamic character, and he becomes one of the greatest villains in film history. Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol is a great example of someone who changes for the better. Really, most of the main characters you see in films are considered dynamic characters, from Bilbo Baggins to Sarah from Labyrinth to Megamind. These are all great examples of character growth. Most TTRPG heroes are meant to fit into this category. Character growth is part of the fun of role-playing, and again, that's what we're here for. Having an arc or direction you want your character to go in to achieve the goals you've created for your character is important, not only for good storytelling between you and your DM, but the satisfaction and pride you as a player receive when you do reach those goals, like vengeance against the person who killed your father, finding a lost tome of magic you heard about as a child, or saving the world. Flat characters are your one-dimensional, underdeveloped characters. During my research, I found that this type of character has the most exceptions to the rules. They can usually be defined as a minor character who has one or two interesting character traits, can be stereotypical, but are generally unimportant to the overall story. These can be your more boring or uninteresting characters, but they don't have to be. If used properly, like as a mentor or someone who assists the hero on their journey, they could actually have a powerful impact on the story, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Most often, they're your supporting cast, your sidekicks, like Chewie. Now, keep in mind, plot-driven books and movies can have a flat main protagonist or even antagonist because character development isn't what drives the story. This includes most older Disney princesses. Their stories about what happens to them, not about how they grow as a person. John McClane from Die Hard is a flat character. He's a New York cop, which already tells you a lot about his personality, and his one motivation is to save his wife from the bad guys who invaded the building. Captain America is actually considered flat. There's really no character arc for him. He's already a hero even before he becomes a super soldier. His moral and ethics never change, and he knows what's right and stands by it. These are both still great and well-loved characters regardless of being considered flat. A one-shot would be a great time to create a character like this. Mostly though, your DM is going to use these. They're your basic NPCs, your tavern keeper or the stable hand, or your goons like Crab and Goyle. They're going to be used to help the heroes along on their journey like Crush in Finding Nemo or Gandalf, to antagonize the hero like Gaston in Beauty and the Beast or even Dracula, or to further the plot by giving quests like Deckard Cain from Diablo or Glinda the Good Witch, or to wear red shirts on Star Trek. We all know what their purpose is. Round characters are your fully developed characters with intricate personalities where much thought has been put into their strengths and weaknesses, their flaws, their motivation, and their goals. Wait, that sounds familiar. Most often a movie or book's main character or the characters around. This is a deeply layered character, one who's interesting to a reader or audience because they feel like real people. The character we get invested in while reading or watching our favorite movies. They're memorable and relatable, and we can empathize with them because we've either been through a similar situation like what they're going through, or we know someone who has. We connect with them because they're believable. That's it! Round characters have a backstory. They have everything we've been talking about in my previous videos. All the things we found important to a backstory and character creation. Most characters that players create should be round characters. You should be taking the time to write a good backstory for them, building them from the ground up with goals, motivations, flaws, strengths, and little clues along the way to help you roleplay to your strengths. This is what you want to strive for. While you can create and play a flat character in a TTRPG, it can work if done right. Most of the time, a round character is the better and more interesting choice for encouraging roleplay and good storytelling with your DM. Creating a round character gives your DM much more information about your character to use in their world to engage you as the player. The best way to explain the difference between flat and round is this. You could say, my character uses a sword. This is flat. There's no reason to do it other than this is what I do. Compare this to the opposite, round, and it could read, my character fights with a sword because one was gifted to him by his father upon his death, where he made me swear to avenge him. Now it's interesting. There's an intricate and complex reasoning behind why your character uses a sword to fight. Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride is a round character with a rich and tragic history behind why the sword is his weapon of choice. Belle is also round, very opposite of Gaston, and they make a great contrasting pair. Now that we know what each of them means separately, let's look at them combined. As a reminder, we have static versus dynamic and flat versus round. So that means we can have static and flat, static and round, and dynamic and round. We only get 3 combinations because a flat character is always static, but a static character is not always flat. Let's go through them so they're not so confusing. Static and flat gets you characters who don't change throughout the story and are pretty one-dimensional, like Crab and Goyle, who we mentioned earlier. Static and round characters are those who don't change but have a rich and complex backstory, like Sherlock or even Thor. Dynamic and flat characters don't exist because all flat characters are static, which brings us to dynamic and round. Characters with a rich and complex backstory who go through a change during the story. They have well-developed personalities and a character arc. Again, these are your main characters, your Bilbo, your Princess Leia, even your Cordelia in Buffy, who changes so much she goes on into Angel to become a main character. I could go on and on with this. So, why are we taking the time to look at fictional archetypes in regards to character creation and backstories? Let's translate this to gaming. Your DM wants to give each person time to shine as the main character throughout the campaign while going through their story arc. Players should help that happen by supporting the one who gets to be in the spotlight. What this means is, in a campaign, at the table, with other players, you all get to be the main character at some point in the story, but you also need to be the supporting cast to each other. You as a player needs to be equipped to play all sides of the story, but with your character's personality. Dynamic and round is the sweet spot, where you want to build your character to meet that need. You get to create your backstory and come up with all the little quirks and intricacies that make up your character's personality, along with their goals and motivations to make them more real. Dynamic and round characters are what make up the majority of the heroes we know and love, the ones we read about or watch on TV or in movies. They have that intricate origin story, and they change and grow as we watch. We love to see the underdog overcome the obstacle, or the bad guy have a change of heart. We love to see our favorite characters grow and change into the person they're meant to be, like Daniel in The Karate Kid, or like Luke Skywalker, who I think I've mentioned in every single video, so I might as well keep the trend going. I think you as a player will enjoy seeing your own character grow and change into who they are supposed to be, and I feel it's a truly rewarding way to play the game for everyone involved, especially for you. And as I've mentioned before, there's no feeling like the DM calling attention to something in your backstory unexpectedly, and the rush you get when you realize you may get to play out your own character arc. So get out there and roleplay. Take everything we've been talking about and create the best backstory you can. Set yourself up for success at the table with a believable character your fellow players can relate to and fall in love with. Work with your DM to weave your story into their world. Shine when it's your turn, and lift your fellow players up when it's theirs. Tell a good story with your friends. Laugh, cry, most importantly, have fun. I'd love to hear who your favorite heroes are. Tell me in my comments or on my Facebook page, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Until then, I wish you good rolls in Nat 20s, and remember, I've got your backstories.